All right. It's great to see everybody, especially off a win. Different mood as far as just the energy yesterday. So I was excited. We had a good Sunday. Watched the Baylor UCF game yesterday before I went home to kind of see exactly how that all folded out. Big difference whenever you have your starting quarterback. Blake Shapen brought a lot of energy to that game. Pretty impressive. Shows a lot of character of that team that you're down. I think they were down by 25, almost like 4 minutes left in the third quarter, and they come back, score 26 in the fourth to win that game. So it was a huge game, and happy for them. I have a lot of friends on that staff, and we both are kind of going through it. In our first 5 games with, guys banged up and not meeting expectations. So, happy for them. And again, it says a lot about them. Fired up. I know that just came out. Loic was the special teams player of the week for the Big 12. We could have had a couple of those with Wade Dre on the return. And then, of course, Loic had the big block punt and then scoop and score. So that was awesome. Special teams players of the week for us this last week was Trey Brown and TJ West. Really gave us some really good looks and helped us play better against Houston. Guys that we expect to be back, Duda Banks went through the walkthrough yesterday. It will be huge to get him back to add another guy in the rotation at D-line. And then it's going to be day-to-day, but we do expect Jordan Brown to be back. He's moving around well yesterday and this morning. That'll kind of be more day-to-day. Came out relatively healthy from the game. So that was exciting because, like we've said, we've been banged up all year. Expected a great crowd. You go back and when Texas Tech played at Baylor, that's always been a good crowd. Our alumni base is so close. Our biggest alumni base is so close in Dallas, so I'm hoping that a bunch of Red Raiders make it down I-35 and are there at 7 o'clock for that kick. It's a great stadium to play in, and both teams are coming off a big win, so it's going to be a great game and get a chance to play another really good opponent in the Big 12. So excited about that, excited about the week, and with that, I'll open up for any questions.
Start with Garrett, then we'll go to John, then we'll go to John and Justin.
Hey, Coach, I'm curious about the commitment to the running game and how effective that was. Was that something? What was the genesis of that? Was that from Kittley? Was that something you had a conversation with him about? How did that unfold?
No, I think it's as a whole. Whenever you have a guy that's running like Taj, it's hard to say there's a better offensive player right now than Taj Brooks, in our uniform. And so, number one, a commitment to really riding the hot hand. I was really fired up. I think you kind of saw what we have talked about with him and Cameron being back there together. So I was excited for Cameron and man, just a kid that's worked really hard and has been banged up, and for him to come out and play. So one, Taj, and then two, I think has a lot to do with our offensive line. Not just them doing a great job in run blocking, but them also saying, Coach, look, if you want to settle the game down and you keep talking about that, then let us do it. I said, Saturday night, Caleb Rogers said that multiple times to me during the game. And so I think with the biggest thing with Taj playing the way he's playing, it gives us a great opportunity to be effective. We were much better on third down because we were better on first and second down, and that comes with running the football. And, and so that's got to carry over into Saturday. Whenever you're doing that, then all of a sudden you're going to have guys really trying to sell out to stop the run, and now hopefully that opens up some big plays in the passing game. And so we're going to continue to ride Taj, and he's got a really hot hand right now, and I think Cameron's a good – 1-2 punch to what he does.
And then the road record is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a storyline, until it changes. Is there anything you're doing differently approaching this week, and what can you do differently in terms of the approach to road games?
And, it's hard. I mean, you search. I thought we were really locked in on the sideline at West Virginia. But, I mean, we stay in the routine that we're in almost, home games. I mean, we get to the hotel really relatively the same time as we get to the hotel on home games. It's the same routine at night. And really the same routine, in the morning. I mean, the difference would be if it was a 7 o'clock kick here, we would come over and do our walkthrough in the indoor. But, we had to do all our walkthroughs at the hotel this week being at home. And so, it's got to challenge our guys, we've got to play well outside of our comfort zone. Obviously, playing at Jones AT&T and playing in front of our fans is our comfort zone. And so now we've got to, pull closer together in a hostile environment and, play better and get a road win. And so didn't talk about that much yesterday. It really, went through. I think you asked me, Chuck, the other day about the, playing to win. I mean, we did not lose one single one of those. I think we were 4 of 7 and tied, the other 3. And so really talked more about that yesterday than, playing on the road. We'll get into that tomorrow because tomorrow is when we introduce Baylor to the team tomorrow morning before practice. So we'll start talking about that whenever we get ready for that game.
John and Justin.
Coach, talked about not matching expectations, but your 3 losses are against teams that are 13-2 with 2 losses versus top 10 teams. How do you keep perspective on that and keep the team knowing that, yes, this is a setback, but good times are on the way? Well,
they're probably handling it a lot better than I do. I'm extremely frustrated. I'm telling you. And so, it was like almost honestly, I enjoyed the win, but it was almost like being able to take a deep breath, because, I expect a lot from this group. And so I was excited and happy for them. The one thing, I think I said it Saturday, but I said it again yesterday, for us to be the team that we expected to be and expect to be, it's time to do that. And so, I thought coming out the second half, we played one of our best games, especially after playing really bad on defense the first half. I thought there was some great adjustments. I thought the guys, played extremely hard, and then, we were able to run the football again. Some of that in close games we're going to have to do more of because we're going to be, in the Big 12, that's one thing in the Big 12, man. There's a lot of great football teams. It's very, each week in and week out, you're playing somebody that you could win, the game, or you could also be in a really close game at the end. And you saw that West Virginia and TCU. I mean, it comes down to 24-21. You're seeing that every week. You saw it, Baylor coming back the way they did against UCF. And so excited to get that win and be able to take a deep breath. But, we're going on the road. You said it perfect. We hadn't played well on the road, so it's time to be the team that we think we are and do it on the road.
And after looking at the film, what did you see from Barron that you're happy with, and what do you think that he still needs to improve on for you to come away with a road win?
Yeah, I was really happy, really challenged him. We talked a lot throughout the week about his feet, and because Barron's very gifted. He's got incredible arm talent. He's got a really strong arm, and so sometimes that really can affect some of your throws because you can make that throw and not really set your feet. So I really challenged him about his feet. I thought he was much better throwing the football with his feet whenever he was set. He had a tendency to fade to his left sometimes. I thought he did a much better job not doing that, being really consistent, and, threw the football well. I think there's going to be times, the better we run the football, the more times also we're going to have to throw the football when people load the box. And so if he can get more consistent with his feet, then you're going to see him really take off. He was excited. I know he's really excited about this week, and he's going to get more action. Expect him throwing this week during practice. Don't know exactly how much he'll throw tomorrow, but you're talking about a dude that looked totally different coming in this Sunday than last Sunday, and that's just going to happen as it goes. And he starts feeling better. He'll be able to do more in practice, but I expect him to throw on Wednesday, Thursday. We don't throw on Thursday with the quarterbacks, and then I expect him to throw on Friday and then be ready to go Saturday night.
Coach, kind of on that, seemed like the offensive line had probably their best game of the season. Just how do you feel that they were able to keep the pocket clean and keep Warren on his feet?
Yeah, against two really good edge rushers. I mean, number 9 is going to play in the NFL. 12 was really effective. I mean, they went off the edge. That's where 2 of their best players are, and so I thought the guys did a really good job. We keep coming back to it, but it's true. Anytime you can run the football, then the defensive line, they don't have the opportunity to pin their ears back and really come after you. And so a more balanced attack is going to lead to big plays. It's going to lead to bigger plays, in the passing game. And then it's going to lead to a clean quarterback and a clean pocket. And so I think it's important. But also, knowing coming into the game, you never want your quarterback touched. But, when you lose a QB, they take ownership on it just as much as anybody else. It was a freak deal. He got rolled up on with Tyler, but you start understanding that we got to keep these guys clean.
It seems like you have a lot of youth in the secondary, and there were some times on Saturday that coverages were busted or however you may see it. But just how do you feel those guys are doing, and even in the linebacking core with Roberts and Dingle?
Yeah, excited with the way Ben's playing. He's been real consistent. Expected that. I was excited to see Dingle get in the game. He brings a lot of energy, really athletic. The Rabbit went out. He looks good today. We expect him to play. It was lower back. We expect him to play. But you're going out there free safety. And, I would say that there's some coverages busted. But if you go in the second half, I think we made better calls. And so one thing I always believe in is it's a collective whenever you have things like that. I think it's just as much the calls that the coaches make as it is possibly, busting some coverages, because there's ways to help the players out by what you call. And I definitely think that TD did a great job in the second half helping some of those guys out. It's good. It shows a lot, and you're going to see it more and more with the change in college football that you get more and more mid-years. And, and all our mid-year guys, when you're especially talking about defensive guys, when you're talking about Dylan Spencer, you're talking about Dingle, you're talking about Sanford, BJ, Chapman, they're all here in the spring, and so they're having the opportunity to play, in the fall. And I think you're going to see that, this is going to be a trend. You're going to see more mid-year freshmen being able to contribute, especially if they physically can, and those guys definitely can.
Coach, I know talking to Loic before the year, this may not have been the year he was hoping for in terms of his production at receiver, but Saturday, a big receiving touchdown and a big swing in the game with the block punt and the return. What does that say about his ability to just stay locked in and be ready to contribute to the team?
It says a lot about, a guy that's a true team player. There's guys that expected, just talking about college football in general, they expected to have huge years and they disappear because they can't handle the adversity. And it shows a lot about him, being the type of guy he is, that he's gone through some adversity. Man, it was a great play by Barron and him on the back shoulder fade. Perfect position by the ball. And Loic made a really good play in that touchdown. And then, we were messing with him yesterday because there's some still shots of some crazy hands coming up, blocking the punt. And he was laughing. He goes, well, I didn't want to end up that way. It just happened. And luckily, I was in good position to block the punt. He's got a great sense of humor whenever it comes to that stuff. But, man, it's everything right about a kid that can stay locked in and understand, that when it's his turn to make a play. We talk about our player coach's oath is I will show courage, and it's really I will show courage when the hat's on my head. And a lot of people disappear from that because they're not getting exactly what they want and what they think they deserve. And Loic's not one of those guys. He understands. He puts the team first, and I think whenever stuff like this happens, now all of a sudden your confidence grows, and I think you're going to see more things from, Loic, definitely on special teams when it comes to that, and in the passing game.
Strength of the Baylor team, or one of them, is their edge rushing. I know you worked with that unit when you were at Baylor. I know Matt Jones is still one of the guys there. Is there any other guys that you worked with that that you have any sort of relationship with?
Yeah, most of those 19 guys was part of that, and then some of the sophomores and redshirt sophomores just being recruiting. The thing that they're doing really well right now is they do a great job running the football, play action, big plays. You saw 80 have a huge day in the second half. I mean, a huge day, but it comes back from getting your leader. I mean, Blake Shapen, I think, really is the heartbeat of that team. You can see the way that he played, and here's a guy coming off an injury, and one of his last plays, man, he pulls it down and picks up like 8 or 9 yards, to get him in good position in the center of the field to kick the field goal to win the game. And so, those guys know those guys well, know that coaching staff well, have some really good friends, and I'm excited to go back to Waco and play in that stadium. It's a cool place to play, and it's going to be a great atmosphere.
Curious on your philosophy of time of possession, because so far this season Tech hasn't won a game on time of possession. Doesn't mean that we haven't won games or anything, but Baylor has won 4 of their 5. Do you think that's something that you need a game plan for, or is that just part of the game? No,
it's just part of the game. I mean, we got the same record, so it's like, some of the new, and man, I'm probably not smart enough, even though I tell you all the time I'm all about analytics, to explain one of the new stats is EPA is a huge stat right now in college football, and it's really interesting. We did some studies yesterday on our game. We were one of the worst defenses in the country in the first half in EPA, and then we were like championship level, top 10 in the second half. Our EPA right now is really high when we run the football. I think 7th nationally whenever we're running the football. And so I'm not smart enough to explain that. I have to get Sean Kinney and Jake Pittman in here to explain that. But I think some of those other stats, are more important than time of possession. The time that I take that more into effect is really whenever your defense has been on the field for a long time. Can you get a drawn out, offensive possession? Can you get to rest them more than, just thinking about time of possession?
Coach, you talked a little bit about the Baylor offense and some players that really stand out. Who on the defense jumps out off the page that you guys are going to have to be prepared for this week?
They got another kid back in the secondary. He got him back in against Texas, but Devin Lemire, number 20, one of their safeties. Matt Jones, I think, is one of the best linebackers in the conference. And they've got some size up front. When they have their first group in, when you're talking about T.J. Franklin and Gabe Hall, Garmin Randolph. I mean, you're talking about guys that are 6'5" and 6'7". 2 of them are 6'5" and 1's 6'7", and they got after us last year. If you go back and look at that game, and those guys had really good games, and so they kind of like us. They played much better defense in the second half, especially in that fourth quarter. I mean, 26-0 in the fourth quarter, and those guys really stepped up. And so, this is a game that, last year at times we were really dominated, and a lot of it was dominated at the point of attack on both sides of the ball. And so we got to do a good job against those guys.
You bring up last year's game a little bit. A lot of Red Raider fans would call that the worst game that you guys played last year. Is that something that you'll address with these guys, that you kind of need to make up for that a little bit, or is that something you kind of bury and not let it get brought up?
It's kind of a mixture. We talked about it. It was the one game that through the season, win or loss, that we were dominated. We were at times dominated, and really they finished the game off dominating us. And so I think it's something, that you talk about, but you talk about, why that happened, and It really was the O-line and D-line up front on both sides of the ball, us and them. And we've got to do a good job of understanding. I mean, these guys are going to come out. They want to run the football. Jeff Grimes does a great job. I've told Grimes many times, man, one reason that I'm here at Texas Tech is what a great job he did in 2021. I mean, you're talking about totally – I mean, if you really study, you're talking about taking a team in 2020 that I was a part of, coming off of a Sugar Bowl, playing Georgia, and not having a very good year, and you bring Jeff Grimes in, and you have one of the most effective offenses in the country. The guy does an incredible job, scheme-wise. Each one of them, Sean Bell, Mateo, their O-line coach. I mean, those guys are really good coaches, and so I thought they had a great scheme last year. When we tried to take away their wide zone, they went to pin and pull, to still run the football, and then, they do as good as anybody, especially when they have shaping in the game. They do as good as anybody with the play action stuff, to whether they're either hitting an over route with number 80 or, finding a way to get the ball to the tight end. And so we've got to make sure we've got a really good scheme. And then it was also our worst offensive game last year. I mean, we put our defense on the field a lot. And so we've got to have it comes back to, you're talking about time of possession. I don't know it's time of possession, but I do know that we got to be effective running the football. And we've got to do a good job of doing the same thing that they're going to do, take shots. But, I have a lot of respect for those guys. And just because I was a part of, 19, 20, and 21, and just seeing a total change, and it all starts a lot with that offensive staff. I mean, I'm telling you, Grimes is one of the best I've ever been around.
Coach, you talk about how Shapen is kind of a leader, and now that he's back for Baylor, he's stepped up as their leader, and they all kind of gravitate towards him. Kind of turning that on y'all, who do you feel like at this point in the season is big leaders for y'all, solid leaders? Obviously Tyler going down probably shifted that, but what does it look like now for you? Yeah,
I think the two, Taj is a huge leader. Taj is not as vocal at times. He's a guy that's kind of a lunch pail guy. I mean, he just comes in. He's always going to have a great attitude. But the way he's running the football is bringing energy. It's definitely bringing energy to the offensive line. Miles Price is one of our big leaders. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Rabbit. Rabbit's the guy that really is the vocal guy. I mean, especially without Jacob Rodriguez. I mean, if Jacob's here, then, he's one of the, alpha dogs of our team, and he's the guy that's going to be, he's getting closer to being back. But kind of Rabbit's the main guy whenever it comes to that. I thought moving Bryce into the inside backer room really helped, because those inside backers do so much with our defense and getting us in position and calls, and then just having him in there just creates even a bigger voice than what he had at outside linebacker. And so my expectation is to keep him in that room, especially until Jacob gets back. And, I think it strengthens us. You're getting Josiah will be back, so you're going to have 4 really strong inside linebackers, adding Bryce in that room to, help us try to slow that rushing attack down that they have.
All right, we'll finish with Don.
You just answered my question. I was going to ask you where you're going to put Bryce.
Yeah, we're going to keep him in there. I was thinking now we're going to play him in a couple of different positions, because, he's a guy that they're going to be a lot of – you look at Baylor, they're going to come out and be at 12 personnel. They might even have 3 tight ends in the game at times. And so, he's going to play – he'll probably play all 3 linebacker positions. He played will linebacker this last week. I'd like to see if he could play some Mike. It gives us a stronger guy behind Ben Roberts, and so that could help. And then he's played Sam linebacker whenever we go to some of our, Okie stuff, and so he'll play some of that too. Just such a – man, you're talking about a smart guy. I mean, he spent all last Monday in the coaches with the coaches going through learning everything at will linebacker, so he could come out and practice Tuesday, and I thought he played really well. Huge tackle on that swing pass, the check down, made a huge play, a tackle for a loss. So we're going to keep him in that room.
So your expectation on when Jacob will be able to play in a game again right
I'm really
now is what?
hoping, there's a possibility of K-State. We'll know a lot Wednesday. We're going to get that foot reevaluated, x-rayed again. And if it looks like he can start going through the return to play, then there's a really good chance K-State. If not, I expect him to play against BYU. And, man, you're talking about a shot in the arm if we can get that dude back.
When did you bring back Cooper Lefevre, and was that, I guess, related
Yeah,
to
we
your
brought him
quarterback
back.
situation?
He and I have been talking. It's funny. He's amazing, man. He's such a great guy. And I told him, I said, man, look, if something changes, talk to me every week. The dude sent me a text every single week saying, hey, Coach, how are we? And I'm like, hey, we're still the same. But when we lost Tyler, we're losing us as much as we're losing a quarterback. Whenever it comes to guys going to play, then we lose a scout team quarterback because now Jake goes from scout team quarterback to number 2. And we wanted more than one. Will Burns has done a great job, but we want to make sure that we have 2 so we can get as many reps as possible. So we brought him back at the first of the week, last Sunday, whenever we knew we weren't going to have Tyler.
I was trying to remember. He has been gone since what, end of spring?
In the spring, yeah.
That was just because
Just
of
numbers.
a numbers thing.
Yeah. You got 120 on your roster, and you can do some things after school starts. And it was one of the deals. It's after school starts, so you can add one. Luckily, he's here, and local guy that is fired up about the Red Raiders. So it helps a lot having an extra arm.
He's wearing number 23. When I was a kid, there was a lot of quarterbacks who wore 20 serious numbers. Are you old enough to remember quarterbacks wearing 20s?
Well, I know I can look back at Plano and in '87 and '86 when they were playing for state championships. I think the quarterbacks were wearing 20 and 25, and I know you can go back to Odessa Permian days and some of their state championships, and they were having their quarterbacks in 20s, and so. Yeah, I think he would have wore anything. He was happy to be back with his brothers, and so that was the number that was available that didn't match up with a defensive number, with another offensive number, and so I'm just glad he's back. All right, thank y'all very much. Great seeing y'all.
Coach obviously had a pretty big second half after struggling in the first half. Just can you explain what some of those changes that you made were? I know you did some stuff up front with the front four.
We didn't tackle real well in the first half. Probably gave them some younger guys some defense that slowed them down mentally, and we got doing more of our day one install stuff, basic stuff that our guys should know, and they executed it better, and we got guys doing a better job of getting pressure on the quarterback, kept him in the pocket for the most part, and we're better with our eyes and coverage.
How do you feel that your edge group is going now? I mean, it seemed like they had a pretty solid game, at least in the second half.
It probably doesn't show up in the statistics, but I thought Steve probably had his best game since he's been here. Really affected the quarterback in the second half in particular. I think when people watch our tape, they're going to notice him. Houston did a good job of keeping it back in to try to chip him, and he still was able to, just through strain, pressure the quarterback. Miles is doing a really nice job for the most part in the run game. We still want him to, strain just a little bit more to be able to make the plays, but he's doing a good job of compressing the pocket. So they're making progress. They're probably never going to get to where we want them to be or where our expectation is for them. But we think they both can be really good players.
Just this Baylor offense, it seems like there's some pretty decent skill on the outside and solid running back, and obviously they get their quarterback back.
Right. Yeah, it's the Big 12. You've got challenges every single weekend, and there's different flavors of the week. This week we're playing an extremely balanced Baylor team. Coach Grimes has always led with the run. They're very, very physical in their running game. They base with, starting out in the wide zone, and a lot of their play-action game comes off of that. And, they're really sound with it. Their offensive line is very well coached. If your eyes are incorrect on the back end, they get explosive plays on you, and you got to make decisions. If you're going to add a guy to the run game and only play with a single high safety, you better be able to cover guys on the outside because they got some guys that can go. And they're doing their running back by committee. All three of them are a little bit different, but they're both. All three of them have different styles, but are very, very effective, and they create a handful for you.
And then, Coach, you mentioned Steve Linton had a really good second half. Did anything change in terms of schematic or how you had him play? Did you simplify anything? And also, how does that change your defense when he's able to apply that pressure?
Well, if you can get pressure with rushing four, life's pretty good. And, there's not a whole lot of teams that can do that. But with Miles and with Steve, they were keeping their tight end and back in order to have to protect those guys. And we weren't able or didn't have to sell out by bringing extra guys, and we can keep guys back. In the first half, we gave up a couple explosives by missed tackles, and then I had our guys in a bad call, where we were playing a coverage that didn't have a safety post. They saw it and hit it, and we've got to be better in technique. But I got to help them out a little bit better with calls. And we played, like I said, more base in the second half, where we were playing with two safeties or one safety, and we weren't zero blitzing them.
Specifically, was there anything different with his approach in the second half or to this game that made the difference for him or not?
I don't know that his approach was any different. I think he played, and I told him after the game, watching the tape, that he played the hardest we've seen him play, more consistently. When you're rushing the passer, it's a hard thing to do, to try to run through 300-pounders and then have another guy chip you, and it can get depressing at times, and it's the reason they do it. But he kept straining, and while he didn't get any sacks, he had some pressure. The quarterback felt him. And I think if you talk to Donnie, he'll say that in the second half, he wasn't as comfortable as he was in that first half.
Chapman Lewis, can you give us some more background? Coach mentioned him being here in the spring and all that, and his progression to his play last week.
Yeah, Chap's a really smart player. He's a little bit undersized for us right now. We got to get him, liking the training table a little bit better than currently he likes it. But he's smart. He studies it. He's smart in the classroom, which always helps. You're not spending extra time having to get tutors. You can actually concentrate on football when you're supposed to because you took care of the other stuff when you're supposed to. He can be physical. He'll be more physical as he gets more weight. But the thing that impressed me was, he didn't go into that game expecting to play a whole lot with Rabbit in front of him. But when called upon, he did his job. And it, again, didn't do anything spectacular, but he was very, very efficient, made the calls, played where he was supposed to, and really did a really nice job getting us out of that game.
Coach, what are you happy about your defense so far this year, and what do you still feel like you need to improve on?
I'm not happy with a lot of things, I guess. I think I'm probably happy with our effort. I think our guys run to the football very well. I think our guys strain for the most part. What I'm not happy with is how we tackled, particularly last week. It's going to be something that's going to be an emphasis this week. It's an emphasis every week, but after missing 18 tackles last week, we've got to go back to basics. And there's no asterisk on, hey, we won, but Rabbit wasn't in, or we won, but so and so wasn't in. It doesn't matter. Whoever we put on that field's got to be good enough to play, and we feel they are. But we've got to give them the tools during the week to train them to be at the level we need them to be to win in the Big 12. So as coaches, we've got to figure that out and drill those guys that are, going to play for us to be ready to execute the defense.
Just on film showing the best, may not see it in the stat sheet, but is showing that he's making an impact where you need him to be?
I thought up front, Tony and Jalen are both playing really, really high level right now. I thought this was Tony's best game. I thought he strained more than he had in some of the other games. They were causing, some really good push inside. Linebacker-wise, I think Ben is acting like a veteran already, and he's, first year starting. He's a freshman and got pressed into service a little bit faster than he thought he was having to, but did not have a tremendous game on Saturday, but he's been really, really consistent, and so that's been good to see. Up until getting hurt, I thought Rabbit had been playing really, really well for us, and did a really nice job of being an eraser back there, that when things aren't perfect up front, he was getting the ball down. He does a great job communicating. One of their explosive plays, we had a miscommunication on the coverage, and we've got to fix that. And again, I got to not give younger guys when he's out some of our more difficult stuff.
It looked like we saw more of a Jaden Cofield and Harvey Dyson, some Dylan Spencer, I believe. What do you think about the young guys up front? And are those guys we can expect to see more of going forward?
Yeah. Jaden's another guy that probably didn't expect to play a whole lot, but it's college football and guys get injured. So when called upon, I thought he did some really nice things inside, played with good energy. One of the telltale signs of a defense and of a defensive player is how does he rush the point after touchdown kick, or how does he rush a field goal? Sometimes guys get discouraged because you gave up the touchdown and you don't see the effort you need to see on those kicks. We talk about it being the toughest 2 seconds in sports because you got to mentally be tough enough, and then you got to go push 600 pounds and try to knock them back. Well, Jaden did it, and that was impressive to see. Harvey has been playing a little bit more, and he's got a toolkit in his ability that he can do a lot of things for us. He's a smart football player. He can rush off an edge. He's got to be more consistent, but for a freshman, he's helping us out. And then who else did you ask about? I'm sorry. Oh, Dylan. Dylan's another one of those guys that I think has a really good upside. Very physical player. I think you saw that a couple weeks ago when we had our last game home against Tarleton. He can set edges and he can rush the passer and create some things. We just got to get him to be more consistent in knowing the playbook and getting lined up right. But he's got a big bright future ahead of him.
Coach McGuire was asked about the frustrations of last year's meeting with them. Do you go back as a defense and look at that game and kind of see what went wrong and talk to your guys about that?
Absolutely. Now that you're in the league games, you're playing teams multiple times. They've got a book on you. We've got a book on them. I thought early in the game, our guys did a really nice job against their run game, which is what they really, lean on, to get things started with. As the game wore on, they made adjustments. They started running some pin-pull schemes on us, and we did not do a very good job of fitting that. So obviously that's going to be a big emphasis this week, is being able to adjust to different, aspects of the running game that teams are going to go to if we take certain things away. And then late in the game, I thought our guys got a little bit discouraged, when that fourth quarter hit and things weren't going, well for us. Our will got broken a little bit, and that's unacceptable, and we've got to do a much better job of just, regardless of what the scoreboard is, fighting with grit and effort. And doesn't matter what situation you put in, you put on tape who you are, and nobody cares about the scoreboard. It's that guy in front of you, and let's go play.
The run game, you mentioned Shapen as well. How much has he changed that team in just the one game that he played?
I was going to say, I think they're totally different with him there. It happens. You got a good athlete, a good quarterback that went through a year. Now he's seeing things so much faster versus the other guys who don't have that experience. He's got a really good skill set. He's got an excellent arm. He can really run it. I think he throws a deep ball very, very well. They can run quarterback run scheme, although they're not doing a ton of that with him, but he's capable of doing it. They're checking some speed option with him. He's going to be one of those guys in our league that's going to be a pain, because I think he's still a young guy, and yet he's played a lot of football. I'm hoping he gets a bad cold this week and he can't play, and then he can play the next week, but I don't think that's going to be the case, so we got to be ready for a challenge.
In your assessment of Baylor's receiver Monray Baldwin following that 150-yard performance?
Well, they've got a few guys that can really run, and what they do in their scheme, they're going to get a lot of one-on-one situations, and he's a guy that can go up and win the one-on-one battle. So you can't just concentrate on him. They've got a few guys back there that can take the top off. But we got to do a good job of knowing where he's at and what his route tree that he likes, so that we can kind of, anticipate the types of routes that we should get from them, depending on the formations and the kind of plays that they're going to run out of it.
A couple weeks ago, you talked about some young players that you are seeing a lot of promise from. Charles Esters was one of them. Can you talk about his performance and how he's been developing?
Yeah, I thought Charles did some good things the other day for us as well. He is a lot like Harvey in that they both work extremely hard at the detail of the game. Their technique is usually really, really good. Charles is like Harvey. They're smart. They can play multiple positions. Doesn't have the measurables, say of Steve or Miles, but he can play football in this league, and so it was good to have him, because you've got to have guys to rotate in and keep guys fresh. And a fresh Harvey or a fresh Charles is helping us to spell guys and making sure that they're fresh when they need to be.
All right.
Okay, guys.
Coach, it seemed like you went back to a lot of screen game in the boundary. Was that planned, and do you have a little bit more faith in Morton getting that ball out there?
I wouldn't necessarily say more faith, just kind of part of what we're doing, this week. Again, just trying to attack what the defense was giving us, and they had what we call a conflict player a lot, and that guy was triggering, and we're spitting the ball out. So that's just kind of a part of the scheme for the week, and that is one of Barron's really good talents, is spitting that ball out there. So it does play into his his skill set, but again, just kind of part of the game plan for the week, and we executed it at a pretty high level, blocked well on the perimeter for the most part, and again, that's really just kind of the RPO game with the runs.
Coach, I'm curious, a lot of tight ends getting motioned out, motioned back in, and set the edge for the running backs on the off tackle. Just how do you feel that they did, and obviously the offensive line had a big day in both pass pro and run block?
Yeah, I thought overall probably O-line and tight end wise is our best game of the year. You know, I don't know exactly how many targets or catches the tight ends had, but kind of coming into the week, again, we knew we were going to be ready to run the football, and we kind of just put in some new stuff for those guys, some stuff schematically that we thought would help open up some running lanes, and we thought we did a really good job with that, just studying some other opponents, some NFL tape and some of that stuff, trying to find different ways to get creative in the run game. So those guys did a really good job. I thought the tight ends really had a really nice game in the run game. Again, I know we had a few catches out there on the perimeter as well. And then the O-line, I thought, played their best game by far this year, which, you know, again, part of that's because we were running the football a lot and we took some pressure off them in pass pro and some of those things, but it was a good game for them.
What are you seeing from Baylor? It seems like they have some decent up front and obviously on the outside.
Yeah, you know, that's probably the most experienced part of their defense. They're in the defensive line. They got some of those guys back. You know, they did lose the big nose guard, third-round draft pick this last year who gave us fits last year. They do got a young redshirt freshman kind of playing a lot at defensive end, but other than that, they got a lot of those guys back. So, yeah, that's going to be a big test for us again. You know, very similar schematically with the four down front this week. So that some of that will carry over. Now, they play their techniques on the defensive front. The nose guard a little bit different than we saw against Houston. But a lot of similarities when it comes to the front. You know, coverage-wise will be a little bit different than we saw, but I definitely think the box, again, is probably the strength of this Baylor defense.
We'll go to Ty, Jared, Cole, and Sean.
Coach, with the success of both Taj and Cameron, how do you plan on splitting those reps, and then where do you see Nehemiah fitting into that?
Yeah, you know, I mean, again, I think we got to be smart with Taj. You know, I mean, especially at running back, man. The shelf life of a running back, because people don't realize, you know, it's not just the 22 carries and the catches and some of those things. But you're talking pass pro, you're talking all that stuff too, where those guys take hits that you may not see. I mean, he had one of the biggest chip blocks I've ever seen in my career this week in pass pro, which was awesome to see. So those guys take a lot of hits. So we've got to be smart with Taj, of course. But, you know, clearly we're going to keep trying to ride him as much as we can, but also being smart. And clearly it was awesome to see Cam come out and have some of those big carries that he had. Really great for our football program and for him, you know, and his confidence moving forward, which, you know, we've known that he's been able to – he had that explosive trait about him. Just kind of getting him back healthy again and getting him running. And then with Nehemiah, you know, it's the same deal. We're going to try to ride the hot hand as much as we can. We got him in late. And trusted him. We were trying to run the clock out there and not have our defense go back on the field. Unfortunately, we were just about a couple yards short there. But, again, we have confidence in all three of those guys and try to do our best to you know, keep Taj fresh. But at the same time, we're going to try to give him the ball as much as we can, you know, when the defense is allowing us, like they did this week, to run the ball the way we did.
And then last week you said that Jake was getting first-team reps with Barron. Is that still the same thing this training camp, or what's it looking like right now?
Yeah, you know, we'll see how Barron progresses. We're expecting Barron to be able to do a lot more in practice this week. So, you know, we have all day today to kind of see how he'll be, but planning on Barron to be out there more this week. But again, we thought Jake did a really good job, had a great week last week, and so he'll be ready to go if he has to go.
Speaking of Barron, he seemed much more composed, under control than the previous week in Morgantown. Do you agree with that, and what do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I think part of it was probably just mentally for him, knowing that, you know, as long as he was ready to go Saturday health-wise, he was going to be the guy. And, you know, we talked all week about him going out there and not trying to be the hero and, you know, to lean on his coaching and lean on his teammates around him. You know, I felt like he maybe tried to do a little bit too much at times, you know, there at West Virginia. And then this week, there were some times where maybe he almost didn't do enough, but that was okay. You know, sometimes we handed a couple balls off in boxes that we don't like to hand off in, and we end up getting, you know, maybe minus a yard or maybe no gain. But when you look back at it, sometimes those happen. But again, I think it just came down to him being more confident going in the game, knowing it was his time, and you know, not kind of being thrown in a freak situation, if you will. You know, definitely, I don't think he was expecting for that to happen to Tyler, especially early in the first quarter right there and those type things. But I think he was just confident going in the week. And again, we felt like we had a really good run plan for him to help take a lot of pressure off him. And I think he executed the runs to a really high level.
The running game, and we talked earlier in the year about the identity of the offense and not knowing it early on. Do you feel like an identity has been established with the running game, or is it still more of just taking what the defense gives you?
Yeah, I mean, right now, definitely look at the last 3 games. We're running the football better than we're throwing the football. And throughout the year, we're struggling to throw the football when it comes comparative to the run. And so, again, the plan's going to be to keep kind of doing what we're doing. Again, these guys are going to play a little bit more too high based off of tendencies. But again, I think people are going to start looking at how we're running the football, and you're going to start seeing more people add to the box, add to the box, add to the box. And one thing we're not going to do is just beat our heads against the wall and just run it into bad boxes. Now, when you get into 3rd and short and goal line, I mean, it is what it is. And we tell those guys that all the time. We've got to be able to mash it, and we got to go. Kind of our philosophy, we got down there in the goal line. They stuffed us 3 times, but then we had 1.5 yards to go, and we're like, hey, we're going to give it to Taj again. We gotta go, and we made it work. So again, we're running the ball really well. Again, Taj he's the hot hand on offense right now, and we want to ride the hot hand. And again, Cam came in and did a really good job when he got his touches, and especially with Barron too coming in and it being his first start, being able just to take that pressure off him and tell him, hey, you don't have to go throw it 50 times a game for us to go win this thing. You can lean on your teammates. And again, I just felt like our guys, we executed at the highest level we executed at all year. We talked all week about everybody doing their job, doing their 111th, and we really did a good job of executing especially the first half. We were the cleanest offense we've been all year. Kind of a weird game that first half. We didn't really feel like we had the ball at all. But again, we'll take all the special team scores we can get. Shout out Kenny Perry, because those guys, him and his staff, and those guys did an unbelievable job getting us 14 points in that first half.
You called Barron a gunslinger last week. We didn't see a ton of success in down the field, longer throws Saturday against Houston. Was that more of a product of what you're getting from the defense, or is that something you're going to try to ease him into a little bit more?
A little bit of both. We didn't have just a whole lot of deep shots in the game plan going in. Again, he was limited in practice throughout the week, so we didn't want to come in with a crazy, overwhelming game plan for him. There's a couple that I think if you would have had a 100% healthy, practiced all week, Barron Morton, I think you'd have seen a couple of balls that we had some guys open. They went some cloud coverage down the sideline, and we got behind them on our sideline twice, actually. I think you would have seen him let those things unload. But again, I just think kind of throughout the week and the preparation that we had, I think he was just, again, it's okay to throw that ball out of bounds and move on to the next play type scenario. So, again, I think week by week, the more practice he's going to have this week and some of those things, you're going to see him go to work. And, again, he went to work a couple of times out there, and he did a really good job checking a couple plays here and there. He didn't go crazy with it, but he checked 4 to 5 plays in the game and got us into some good checks. And but, again, that's who he is. And I think the biggest thing you see with him where he wasn't just chunking it all around the yard is he understood the scenario of the game and the run plan that we had, and was ready to just kind of, again, lean on his teammates, lean on Taj and that offensive line and Cam and those guys to get it done.
Coach, with the success of Taj and Cameron and Nehemiah, do you feel that the box is going to get a little more closed and it's going to open you up for more RPO action?
Yeah, it all depends, because the deal with the RPO game is what are they playing exact coverage-wise. They could still be running one high, but they could be playing a zone defense. So, like, for example, Houston was playing more one high defense than you might expect, but we are doing a really good job getting push cracks by our single receivers, taking that extra player out of the box. But now if you start coming, you're starting to play press man and some of those things, that's when some of your RPO game gets taken away. Because really when you're talking RPO game, you're talking windows and grass and some of those things. When you're playing true man coverage, the RPOs, there's a couple RPOs you can get to. But a lot of the RPOs that most people do, they're attacking grass, which is what you saw. We were talking about some of the perimeter screens later, and that was just attacking grass and finding that conflict player who's in the run fit. And when you're getting some of those the true man stuff, those man players aren't in the run fit. And so it just kind of, again, it's going to kind of vary week by week. I do believe they're going to start packing the box more and saying, hey, we got to let these guys throw it some. And again, I feel good about Barron and where he's at, and our pass protection, our receivers make plays when that needs to happen.
So, are you still with the one play schemed for each time, and then going with whatever the defense gives you?
That's correct. Yeah.
And so, how much of the playbook has been opened up for Barron to have fun with now?
Yeah, I mean, it was all there. You know, again, you're talking, whenever I was mentioning earlier, we didn't have a bunch of like shot plays. That was more based off of schematically, you know, again, to the field, they were playing really soft, a lot of cushion. Their corners are backing out of there hard. So whenever they're getting real big depth out there, you're not going to want to throw a whole bunch of deep balls. But the playbook's open to him. Again, he's kind of said it all year whenever it was going to be his time to shine. I mean, I feel confident with him and where he's going, and he's really taking it upon himself to get in there and watch a lot of tape and study and be prepared for the game. And again, I thought he did a really good job. You know, I thought he managed the game really well. You know, I want to say we threw the ball 22 times maybe, and a couple of those were him calling his own number, which is good. He completed some of those balls that he did. But I think you'll probably start to see if people are going to bring a bunch of guys in the box, he's going to start throwing it. And again, the playbook's going to be each week, you know, we're going to find out what are they good at defensively and where are their weaknesses, and that's what we're going to attack in the run game and the pass game both. So again, you'll see, you know, run scheme.